The button's red. We're good to go. For the podcast version, that if you become a patron of the Professional Casual Network, you can check out the recording of this right after the Wednesday after I do it on Sunday, instead of waiting for 2 weeks for the YouTube, if that's how you're watching this. So a little bonus you can get there. Today I've got a couple cool things to talk about. The book of this week is going to be Grey Seer, dealing with my favorite Skaven ever, Thanquol, the Grey Seer himself. The lore focus of this week is going to be my sweet baby boys. Beast of Chaos. Love this stuff. Whoops, forgot to change the title. This is not Quarantine Replay. Totally forgot. I had it set before. Forgot to change that stuff. Can I change that while I'm recording? I don't think so. Let me see about that. Can I change it to just chatting? Hey, thanks, Dagna. Appreciate that for Prime subscription. Yeah, people aren't aware of that. If you've got Amazon Prime, you get one free, built-in Twitch subscription a month, which is pretty sweet. It doesn't cost you anything extra, and you're just kind of yanking that $5 out of Jeff Bezos' pocket because you know he doesn't need it. So you could be like Dagna and subscribe with your Twitch Prime account. Really easy. Just link your Twitch to your Amazon. You're good to go. While we're getting started here, I'm going to see if I can change the title. Again, I don't know if it'll change while I'm doing it, but I'm going to try. What is this show again? Stream of Perilous lore. Of course, I came down to my basement like 15 minutes early and forgot to check that because I forgot we ran a rerun. The Power Phase had to take a little hiatus because of quarantine issues. We weren't able to play the last couple of weeks for various reasons. But as far as I knew, we are back to that tomorrow with Tim and Charlie. Big Chuck are going to play Guardians versus Black Order. Next week I'll be back on that for my Defenders list, or maybe A-Force if we get She-Hulk in. Things have gotten a little delayed now. That's right, I did see that. Elon Musk is richer than Bezos by a whole $1 billion. Just $1 billion, you know? My God, I can imagine. Ugh. So what's gaming news? Other than, the Power Phase, She-Hulk comes out for that. We recorded our thoughts on her card and her pack did I roll a wild? Which is going to be, I think, a monthly bonus content for patrons. I know we had such a great time doing it. Me, Tim, and Big Chuck talked about She-Hulk. It was supposed to be a 20-minute thing, and ended up being at least an hour. So, we get talking, and that's what happens. It's what happens when you do podcast stuff all the time. You talk and talk and talk. That was super fun. I'm not sure exactly when that's coming out. If it's not out, I'm pretty sure it's not out yet. If I find out during a recording, I'll let you know. But that's something for Marvel Crisis Protocol subscribers, getting a little bit extra there. Yes, certainly a nerd, Throwlash. You are too. So proud of being a nerd, though. I'm going to have my Final Fantasy VII shirt on to really nerd it up while playing WoW. Yeah, that's super nerd, playing WoW. I played that for 2 weeks when it first came out. One of my friends on my college floor was like, "Oh, you like online games?" Because I was playing City Heroes a whole bunch at the time. He's like, "You got to try this. Warhammer, not Warhammer, good lord. World of Warcraft." And I was like, I like fantasy stuff. I played Warcraft 2 a bit. Was Warcraft 3 out at that time? I think so. I played some of that, and I was like, I'll give it a shot. And I was like, I like the superhero stuff better. So I played it for 2 weeks, and that was it. I had a Tauren that looked like a cow. Black and white. It was pretty. It was okay. It wasn't my favorite, obviously. Other thing in Let's Gaming, I want to talk about a little bit, just to kind of tease things that are going to be happening in the future. We're ironing out details as we speak. I've had an idea for a new campaign for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, where we're going to be playing in the Southlands. We're going to go on an expedition to try to establish a new Imperial colony. We got a few of the regulars returning, Tim and Danny from a Grim Podcast of Perilous Adventure, and trying to kind of nail down the last two. Hoping to get Throwlash there. He was in the chat to join us if he's able, and Alex as well from Grim Podcast of Perilous Adventure. Taylor, Throwlash Gaming himself. You can check him out on Twitch. Is it twitch.com/Throwlash Gaming? Which it must be because that's your name on Twitch right now. He's also on the Lost Omens podcast, our Pathfinder 2 actual play, which is super fun. Episode 4 of that comes out tomorrow. That's a good one. We get into a cool fight in that one. Yeah, you got to check that show out. If you like what we're doing with Grim Podcast of Perilous Adventure, you'll really like what we're doing with Pathfinder 2. Putting our own spin on it, real roleplay heavy. We're all really new to that system, so kind of similar with WFRP, where we're getting the rules as we go. We've been pretty good about it. We did a bunch of like practice type shows that are on our Patreon where we played through like the free like starter adventure before the beginner box came out. It was just this super short one shot we did with Iconics. Danny is crushing it. She totally is a nicer GM. She's like afraid to do too much damage to us at first, and I was like, don't be, because if we like have a hard time winning a fight or people are potentially dying, like that just makes it all the sweeter when we do win. But I think she's going to get more ruthless as we go. But yeah, Danny from a Grim Podcast of Perilous Adventure is running that game, and she's doing a great job. We're playing through the Extinction Curse adventure path. Super, super fun. Oh my gosh, I love my character, Brennan Nimblemind. He's a Yosoki so much. He's so much fun. Let's see. Another thing I want to... So this Southlands campaign, which is what I'm calling it now. I need to come up with a better title for it. Really, really excited about it. It's going to be totally like homebrew type thing. I'm making up as much as I can. I made a map on Incarnate. I'm going to make some other like battle map type things, and I feel like ideas have just been pouring out of my head. And it's been so much fun. I can't wait for this to happen. It'll probably be a few months out at least. We're going to have to record it kind of irregularly. So, but that'll be a Patreon exclusive actual play at patreon.com/professional casual. We are a little OP because there are 5 of us in that Pathfinder game, Throwlash. So yeah, I've talked to her about potentially making things a little bit more difficult as we go, which if I know Pathfinder, it won't be that much of an issue too far forward. But yeah, going down south, is that your proposal for the idea there, Bastion? Because that works. I like that idea so far. But I'm super excited for this. I've been building a huge cast of NPCs because it's a huge expedition down to the Southlands to try to establish a colony. Taking a lot of cues from the Ruins of Aslant adventure path for Pathfinder that I've been listening to on the Glass Cannon, or was listening to. They took a hiatus from that, where they're playing through that AP. I like the idea of like you get to this other place, and there's all these things happening around that you can interact with and find, and want lots of exploring through the jungle to see what is this tower and what is this place, and oops, this is a monster lair, blah blah blah. But, with it being Warhammer, you're going to have to worry about disease, you're going to have to worry about being too hot and sweaty and humid, and you have to worry about having water and all that stuff. So I'm really, really excited for this. We'll have more information on that as we go. Obviously, it's in the infancy stages at this point. I mean, I'm writing it. Yeah, it's very influenced by Kingmaker as well. I played through a little bit of that, and I know a lot of I shouldn't say a lot. I know some of the kind of the basics behind it. So those are the things I'm influenced by there. Well, one other thing I want to talk about before we jump into the lore focus of the week is I've been having some questions or people interested about what's on the bookshelf behind me. So I tried to get all the Warhammer type stuff in the regular shot for my GM chair. In addition to, I got the right hand that time. I got my D&D 5e books over here, which a year and a half ago, closer to 2 years ago now. It's getting to be. I got back into role-playing. Started like the summer after high school. I was kind of late to the party. Danny's dad, actually, he had been playing D&D since like the early 80s or something. AD&D, I think he had all those books, maybe even original. And he ran a game that we were in. Wait, boo hiss to what? D&D 5e? Yeah, I mean... It's a great gateway RPG for sure. But yeah, so I couple of years ago, JB from Grim Podcast of Perilous Adventure was hanging out. We had babies. He's got his little baby. I had my baby, so it was less than 2 years ago. I don't know. Felix is like 2.5, so somewhere between 3 and 2 years ago, we were hanging out, just talking about stuff, and I was like, I've been playing 40K and Warhammer for 15 years or something. And I was like, I kind of want to get back into RPGs just because, like, if I'm going to sit, if I'm going to go play a game for 4 or 5 hours, I kind of want to, interact with more people. Like, 40K was, I loved it for a long time, but it just got to be kind of stale. It was the same thing. Whoever went first was going to win. I guess it's better with 9th edition, but, kind of falling out with that. And then GB recommended the Glass Cannon podcast. He's like, if you want to get in RPGs, listen to these guys. They're great. And I was like, all right. So I did, and I found love right away. They play Pathfinder 1st Edition. They were playing through the Giant Slayer AP, and I loved it. And I was like, I need to play some RPG. So I grabbed a bunch of 5e stuff because I wasn't ready to go back into Pathfinder. I had played that a little bit here and there over the years, but like I wanted something. I heard good things about 5e, so we dove into that. Got some local friends together to play Horde of the Dragon Queen. That leads into the Rise of Tiamat. And we played that for a while. That went on for almost a year. It actually continued until COVID hit, which was really good for us. But I made maps with models and everything, and I grabbed a bunch of models from the local store, tried to paint them up as we went through. It was a good time. And then COVID hit, and we started up the network, and I was like, I need to play an RPG because it's been too long. We had kind of second favorite cop. Oh, thanks, Dagna. Appreciate that. We started up the podcast network because we had started with the Big Fiction Energy, where we were doing my fantasy book, Lania the Girl Without Fear, as like an audio drama, and then it was mostly Tim saying, I want to try others, I want to add more stuff and do more and really like put our heart and soul into it and get the right stuff. So we got like sweet equipment, we got our Rodecaster Pro mixer, we got microphones, we got headphones, we got all this stuff in our basement. We set it up a room that was kind of a game room. We played a few RPGs down here, but I don't think we ever actually played Warhammer down here or anything like that. And it then became the podcasting room. I don't know what that emoji's for, Danny. I don't know. This is the face. I'm not sure what that was a response to. And I was like, I need to play an RPG again. And we had tried to do a Warhammer podcast a while ago, but we had like one little microphone in the middle of the table, and there were like 6 of us. JB was running it. He was doing a great job, but we only played like one time, and it was like we didn't know what we were doing. The system was so different. At that point, it was like me and JB were the only people around the table that had experience. And Danny had experience with Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and then it was very different. And it was just like we realized it wasn't something that we were going to put out there. We had a good time. I don't think it was great radio, I guess you could say. Every good base needs a name. The Dungeon. Could be. Yeah, the Basement. I remember when we did, when Taylor, Big Chuck, and I did For Whom the Die Rolls, where we were doing like Warhammer Battle Reports. At one point, I know the name thrown around idea was potentially Creepy Basement Games, because we mostly played in Taylor's Creepy Basement, but that was fun. Excuse me. But then we decided with the network, I was like, well, we tried the Warhammer RPG before, but let's try it again, but just with a smaller group of people, and the Enemy Within campaign is coming out now. I'd really love to run that because I've always heard everything amazing about it, but I've never done anything with it before because 2nd edition didn't have it, and it was impossible to get those books in the early 2000s when PDFs weren't as easily accessible as they are now. And then it was like, sure, let's figure it out. And then we had the Grim Podcast of Perilous Adventure, and it was like an instant hit, and it was like, whoa, what is happening? People like this. So now I want to expand. We added the Lost Omens podcast that's awesome, and so this next one is going to be kind of I don't know. I don't want to say it'll be as. I don't want to commit to too much at this point. But our plan is to record it when we can, basically, and release it as regularly as possible on the Patreon. I forgot where I was even going with that. I got excited talking about how we got into this. Oh, with the books on my shelf. So yeah, and we played that 5e game for a while. That died with COVID. Here I've got the Overlight book. That looked really, really cool when it first came out. Unfortunately, Renegade Games didn't support it much at all. There's been like 3 releases in the like 2 years since it came out, year and a half, something like that. There was a two free RPG Day releases for it, and then like a Game Master Screen / adventure book that came with it. And there's been like one other thing that I don't have, and that's it. That game looked really, really, really cool. I really, really like the world that it's set in. We've talked about doing like a actual play series, kind of like Glass Cannon's new game Who Dis, where we'll try out different systems. And I really wanted to run some Overlight. It was really cool. Here we have I think this is Death Watch, and then Dark Heresy, which we played a lot of. I've been playing RPGs pretty much constantly since right after high school. We played a lot of WFRP in college, and then after that, that kind of fell off because it wasn't supported by Black Industries anymore. Fantasy Flight took it over, and then they did 3rd edition, and I didn't even pick up the core books for that. I heard nothing good about it. You could only buy the core books as a 3-book set that was $100, and right out of college, I could not afford that. It was like, I could buy one of these if you sold one for like $40. I could buy like one of the core books to get a feel for it, but I don't have $100 to spend on this game that I don't even know if I'm going to like because nobody else seems to like it. The art was great. And I'm assuming you're talking about Overlight, or you're talking about like Dark Heresy, because both of them actually were really good. Overlight, I really liked. There was the art design, the art direction that really got me with that. Yeah, seriously, 3rd edition. I can't talk too much about it because I never played it. I mean, even D&D 4e, I played once and had a Player's Handbook, and I think Player's Handbook 2 that I sold like a year ago, finally, when I was moving stuff around. But yeah, 3rd edition, we just avoided like the plague, and we played a bunch of Dark Heresy instead. We were playing through the Harkin trilogy, I think it's called, which was pretty good. We actually got to the 2nd book of that with a local group, Danny and Tim included in that. I think Taylor was in that because he was playing a tech priest at one point. There was a great moment that we refer to all the time when we say, "Oh, zombies!" where he was playing like a tech priest with his like Zoidberg mouth, and he just went, "Oh, zombies!" Something scared him, and he ran away. I think it's hilarious. Then I got the 4th edition books, which most of them aren't on the shelf because I use the thing all the time. Yep, the zombie thing I know you're going to talk about. And then next to that, I was going the wrong way here. Then you passed out from fright are all my 2E Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay books, which I believe I have the complete set except for Carrick Asgal, because my brother Tim, has that, and I never got my own copy, which I need to someday. And the Thousand Thrones, I never got that either. JB has that. We actually played that for a bit with JB years ago. It was super cool. Hey, Warhammer Gaming Dad, welcome. Yeah, I wasn't sure how well that would translate, Bastions. The other side of me, I never go the right way. I've got, here's a little bit of Starfinder. I was going to try to run a Starfinder game online when COVID started, and then we started the network, and that just never happened. I got a couple things for that. I like the idea of that book a lot. Next to that is a bunch of old Warhammer Fantasy Battle Army books. We got some 8th edition hardcovers and then 6th edition and back. For some reason, I have 3 copies of the 8th edition rulebook. I know I had one. I think one was my brother's that I have. I don't know how I got a 3rd. That doesn't make any sense to me. Next to that is pretty sweet old 3.5 core books for D&D. And then I think there's one other one called Frostburn, some like ice setting. Real old 40K core books. I got some Age of Sigmar battle tomes. I got like Beasts of Chaos, Skaven, General's Handbook 2018. I played that game very briefly. I used to have Deepkin, but I sold that whole army painted. A guy who bought it actually bought it for his brother for a wedding gift, which is super cool. Wow, that's awesome, Bastion. He says you have everything published from 1989 except, well, that which we will not speak of. Fair. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen a Carrick Asgal on your shelf in the basement there, Throwlash. It's super cool. Next to that is, I think, the core book for 2nd edition of Age of Sigmar. I got a Kill Team book. These are 8th edition 40K rule books, and then the 9th edition rule book that I got and just never played. Never played it. I bought the Indominus box set when it came out because I had the money at the time, I guess. And I played Blood Angels, so I figured I'd add it to that, and I sold off the Necron half, so I got that box for like $100. It was a great deal, and I just never played a game in 9th edition yet. I know Tim was asking me to play one soon, so hopefully we'll do that eventually. Up here, nope, left hand, are some old white dwarfs in a stack. And then next to that, some other, like the when they were going weekly for a while, on top of a box of the Legends of the Five Rings game I played at the local game store for a while, please. I just read Throwlash said, please. We played at the local game store for a little bit. We did the adventure that came in that starter box. It was pretty good. I like the setting a lot. The rules are a little clunky, but people had a good time. People have asked me if we were going to do that again. And I was like, no, I wish, but no time. I don't have time to run another game. I'm already doing more than I probably should anyway. I'd kind of love to revive my 5th edition game, but like, I just don't know when we'd ever play. And now I feel like if we're going to play anything like that, I should record it. It's crazy. Yeah, Throwlash, we need to play 9th edition at some point too. I don't know. Maybe someday when we're not doing other stuff. Miniatures have been my Marvel Crisis Protocol since it came out last November. And I just started adding Legion to that. Got a bunch of Legion sets, and hopefully get those painted up someday. Whew. All right, so that's what's on my shelf. That's not all my stuff. That's what's out here. I think there's more somewhere. There's another shelf next to it that has like 7th edition and 6th edition 40K books, because I had a ton of those, and they kept doing the game over again. It was really annoying. So let's jump into the lore focus of the week. Everybody's favorite, at least mine, Beastmen. So obviously I keep holding up this book. This is what got me into Warhammer in the first place. Sweet stuff from 2003, which I believe was the 6th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. Not positive. I have their 7th edition book here I looked at a little bit. Most of it's just rehash lore from this book anyway. This one's better. Beastmen never got an 8th edition army book because GW hates Beastmen. You know, they make them an army. They're trash. Their current army for Age of Sigmar is just awful. I'm in a Beast of Chaos group on Facebook for the game, and it's just funny how people complain about it all the time. Like, if you want to, people are like, hey, what's the best competitive list? And they're like, not this army. It's so bad, but I love it. I had rebased them to round bases a couple years ago when we were locally we were trying to get into Age of Sigmar, and it was just like, I played a few games with them, and probably won't ever again. Hopefully I don't have to rebase them for the old world. But like I said before, I think it's going to be a totally new game. Also used one of the best 2E books, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 2nd Edition book, The Old World Bestiary, which is just awesome. I love this book. Even if you're not playing 2nd Edition, it's a great one to try to find because the way it's set up, it's super cool. The first half of the book goes through all these different things where they have like the common view, and then the scholar's eye, where it's supposed to be some guy went around and interviewed people about all these different things, and then in our own words, if they can talk. Really, really interesting. It won awards at the time, back in like 2005 or 6 when this came out. 2005, it won awards for like best RPG book of the year because the way it was set up, and then the second half of the book is all their stats. Super cool. So I read on those books a bit the last week or so to kind of remind myself of things about Beastmen that I kind of forgotten. We don't do lore focus yet. What I'm doing, I'm getting out of order of my own show here. Before we do lore focus, I want to talk about this week's book, Grey Seer, which is funny. I was just talking with guys in the Discord, especially Bastion, who's busy in the chat here, talking about the proper pronunciation of the race of people in this book, these rat people, rat beastmen. I'm not going to go into the details of this, but I just thought it was funny that we were discussing this just before I started the show, where I had picked this book yesterday, not just to mess with him at all. No, but really, I picked this yesterday because I was trying to think. I don't want to make it every week like the book is themed to the show because I haven't read all the books, and if I do this for any length of time, I'm going to be out of Warhammer books I've already read. But this one kind of fits because I mean, Skaven are often confused of as rat beastmen. So I was like, sure, I love this book. Grey Seer is great. It takes Thanquol from the Gotrek and Felix books. He was first introduced in Skaven Slayer and the destructor part destruction of Nuln, and they gave him his own spin-off a few years later, little series. And this one is his story in, I believe it takes place in Altdorf, and him trying to get on the Council of 13, which is awesome. It's so great. And he has got his rat ogre Bone Ripper that constantly dies and he has to replace. One of my favorite parts of this book was actually he was trying to get some artifact, I think it was called the Wormstone, from a group of people that were also trying to get it at the same time because it was like a chunk of warpstone. And yeah, I said it properly, Skaven. And part of this other group of people, there's this awesome gray wizard who I don't think even gets named, but he's like constantly a thorn in Thanquol's side. And the whole time I was reading it, I was like, this dude's so cool, like making big spheres of darkness and like turning into vapor and whatnot. And he was just a really, really cool wizard who was like not your typical old man hobbling on a staff. He was like zipping around, jumping around. He had a sword, and he was so cool. And I kind of wanted him to get his own spin-off. The whole time I was like, please don't kill this guy. Like, I know Thanquol's a bad guy, but he's also the protagonist of this. Please don't kill this wizard. I'm not going to tell you if he makes it through or not. That'll be up to you if you decide to read Grey Seer. There are actually 3 of these. Grey Seer and then Temple of the Serpent, which is really cool. Thanquol goes to Lustria and meets up, has a bunch of fights with lizard men and stuff. Really cool. And then there's a third one called Thanquol's Doom, which I don't think I've read. I feel like I've missed that one. I can't remember what that would be about. I need to find that and read it because it's great. C.L. Werner does a great job with Thanquol. He knows how to write the character. He knows how to mix the elements of horror and humor that are essential to Thanquol because he's like, I want to say like a classic 90s cartoon villain where he's just a bumbling genius. But I feel like that doesn't give proper credit to Thanquol. He's amazing. You need, if you like Skaven at all, do yourself a favor, read the Grey Seer, the Thanquol and Bone Ripper novels. It's good stuff. Good stuff. All right, lore focus of the week. Beastmen. So I love this. This image here is the cover of the book I was showing before, the wraparound cover. If I can hold it up properly. This image is so great. I believe they used the left part of this image as was the box cover art for the Gore/Ungor set. Just say my way. Bastion's really trying to get me to say Skaven his way, which I think he pronounces it Skaven. He says say it like scavenger, but it's still Skaven if you say scavenger, Skaven. I don't know. I'm going to say Skaven anyway. But yeah, so Beastmen, we got a couple different varieties. I love these guys because they just look cool. It was the big thing that got me into Warhammer in the first place was just the way they looked. Talked about my brother got into it first, and then he had, I think it was at the time the 5th edition rulebook where everything was metal, and I love the way the Beastmen looked. The Gore and Ungor looked amazing. That's what we have in this picture. We got, I assume what would be a Beast Lord in the middle there, our prominent figure. And then to the left of that, we've got some little Ungors with their little piddly horns, and then the Gore with their big proper horns. Did I still not say it the way you want, Bastion? This is, oh my days, I give up. Is it not? Are you not trying to say Skaven? Skaven? Are you trying to say Skaven? Because I've never heard that one before. I've heard people say Skaven, and Skaven is the most I've ever heard of, but Skaven. I don't know. Whatever. Beastmen. Super cool. So yeah, we got a couple different types of Beastmen. We've got our basic Gore, which are basically just like your satyr type people. One thing I love about Beastmen and the fact that they're not just satyrs is that they've got big sharp teeth, and they eat meat. And they're the true children of chaos. There's some debate about where Beastmen come from. Sometimes they're mutants that get left in the woods or just leave society to join these herds around, but that wouldn't account for all of them. What I loved about the Old World Bestiary, there was some between the different people that were interviewed talked about, do beastmen actually procreate or not? And some argued no, they don't. They're only created from mutants. And others were like, well, yeah, they procreate all the time. Why do you think we have huge herds of them? Super cool stuff. So the basic beastmen, you've got Gor and you got Ungor. And Gor, so we'll start with Ungor because they're like the cast-offs. They're the little ones. They're like goblins to orcs. Where's my picture? There we go. Ungor. They look more human. Their faces have more human features, less goat features, and they typically have no or very stubbly horns like a young deer. All beastmen have those animalistic legs with hooves and those backwards joints at the bottom of their legs, and more hair on the body than a human would, fur especially on the legs. And Ungors are like the runts; they are treated as trash in beastman society. They are not afforded the rights to challenge, and if they do try to challenge a leader, they will just get smacked down, no problem, because they are smaller and weaker than Gor. With the Gor, we also have, there we go. A couple different ways they break themselves down. The basic Gor is kind of like your frontline fighter. This is the most common beastman in a herd, where there be anywhere from dozens to hundreds or thousands of them, depending on the size of the herd. And as they rank up and become bigger and stronger and survive more battles, they can become Bestigor, which are going to be the biggest and strongest of the Gor, who will take the best weapons, they'll take the best armor. In the game, they were always equipped with heavy armor and great weapons, which was awesome. Way back in the day with the 5th, 6th edition armies, I love giving them the vitriolic totem, so the whole unit had poison, which was gross on Bestigors because they were strength 6, so it's -3 to armor saves, and if they rolled a 6 to hit, they automatically wounded with almost no armor saves ever. It was great, and then they got rid of it because GW hates Beastmen. As they race through those ranks, they can become a Wargor, which in the fantasy battle game was a hero choice. He could carry a battle standard bearer. He was kind of like a lieutenant type thing, and eventually they could get to the rank of Beast Lord, which was the leader of the herd, and had to constantly fight off challenges because it was kind of like might is right. The biggest and strongest beastman gets to lead. Oh, that's a good point. Danny says, why was I not consulted to make a guest appearance as a Skaven expert? When I do the Skaven episode, we can do double trouble like that. We'll figure that out with OBS and whatnot. I'll have to have Tim to help me. Maybe even have it be me, you, and Alex, because Danny and Alex both played Skaven in the tabletop game. But the Beast Lord would be the one that lords overall. He's the biggest and strongest. He's fought his way to this position, and he decides what the herd does. Anybody can challenge the Beast Lord at any time to take his place if they think they can fight him in combat. If they, the challenge, if they can win, they will become the new Beast Lord. So they change all the time. It's something that keeps the Beastmen in check, because they're not going to have one leader for a long time, because he's going to age, he's going to lose his position, and then it might change what they want to do. Maybe they want to go raid this settlement, but he gets challenged before they can do that, and now it's delayed and whatnot, and it kind of makes it so people can survive with these beastmen around, because they can't go and fight the humans as much as they might want, because they're constantly fighting among themselves. Among the beastmen are very important the Brays. Bray shamans are their magic users. They typically do things like they can manipulate the winds of the lore of beasts. They can manipulate different chaos magics, and they can even manipulate winds specific to God. If they end up worshiping like Tzeentch or Slaanesh or Nurgle, they can do magic with that as well, which is pretty cool. These guys are weird, like outliers of the normal kind of chain of command, where sometimes as Brays, I've seen a lot of things in the lore where they're talked about not having horns, but every picture of a Bray shaman or model has a horn. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me what they're talking about there. But yeah, Throwlash wants to do ogre. You did play ogres for a while. Your cave ogres were scary, but they are the shamans. They are the spiritual part of the society. They typically rule alongside or like advisors to a beast lord. They don't typically have their own a herd, but they can. They can actually take control of a herd because if you challenge a guy that can do magic and shoot an amber spear through your chest, he could take over the herd, of course. So Bray Shamans can be leaders, but usually take an advisor because they're not as aggressive. Along with our typical two-legged beastmen, we have one of my favorite units in the game, Centigor. My God, I love these guys. I said last week I was going to take out some models. I forgot to do that. I love Centigors. They're so cool because they are the Warhammer version of Centaurs, where they are just awful. they're so cool. They don't have hooves. Actually, they have these clawed feet. We can see in the image there, but they look just like a Gore from the waist up, and then they're like this crazy chaos horse from the waist down with big clawed feet. These guys should have been awesome in the game, but they were terrible. They had some really cool rules, and then they just messed them up. If they come back for the old world game, I hope that they are actually usable. In Age of Sigmar, they're actually pretty decent, but they are super cool. Heterochromatic eye. They have different colored eyes. But yeah, I love these dudes. They are known for even among the creatures of chaos for being like outcasts. So yes, they are drunk bastards, as Throwlash says in the chat. They typically drink themselves into a stupor. In the game, they had a rule called Stinking Drunk. Let me double check if that was the name of it. I don't want to get that wrong. And it was there were different iterations of this rule throughout all the different editions. Just drunken is the name of the rule in that version of it, where typically you would have to roll at the start of the game or at the start of a turn to see, are they stupid, are they frenzied, or are they just kind of normal. Bray Shamans have the Bray Shamans are heterochromatic, so they have different colored eyes. That's pretty cool. But Centigors are just super cool. They were always super fast, faster than typical horses. They were really aggressive. They were tough. They were strong. They were just great. And somehow they were terrible on the tabletop. I'm not sure what they did to mess them up so bad. They weren't fast cavalry. Was always my big thing that didn't make any sense. You could give them throwing axes, but they were terrible. They had like a 6-inch range, and they had BS3, so they're going to hit on like 5s most of the time anyway. They had such potential, and they're just terrible. After Centigors, we have another slightly different strain of Beastmen. Often these guys aren't included with Beastmen. They're typically kind of categorized on their own because they're quite different. They are much bigger, and they're much stronger, and they're much more like bulls than goats. Minotaurs. I don't have to move over as much for that picture as I thought I did. I couldn't find a sweet picture from the older book on the Minotaur page where they used to have these awesome black and white pictures of the different units on the page that were being described. So like this one here from the old book. I know this is so elegant. Here. Love that image. Couldn't find that one online, so I found this one from the more recent 7th edition book that has, this is a Gorble. They added hero versions of Minotaurs. You could take them as units, you could take them as heroes, and you could take them as lords called a Doom Bull, which was just awesome. And these guys are great. One of my favorite things about Minotaurs in Warhammer is their blood greed, where they're meat eaters, of course, like other beastmen, and they are like insatiable, kind of like Galactus. They have to eat all the time. So in battle, sometimes they stop while fighting to gorge themselves on whatever it is they just killed. In the tabletop game, it could be awesome. In the newer 7th edition rules of them, they got this sweet rule. If they killed something, and if they wiped out a unit in combat, they got frenzied or increased the attacks they got from frenzied. So there were games, especially against Taylor, against Throwlash, where like my Minotaurs would have like 6 attacks each, and anything they touched was then dead. But if they were to like move on after a unit, they could overrun or pursue. They didn't go as fast because they were distracted by what they killed and they were trying to eat it. And that rule always was kind of funny and cool to me. But Minotaurs, super awesome. Love these guys. Always love Minotaurs. If you listen to Big Fiction Energy, Landing Girl Without Fear, her bodyguard is a Minotaur named Brutus. He doesn't eat people. He's a vegetarian. But, you know, I love Minotaurs in general. They're super, super cool. Other things about Beastmen, kind of in general, they have their Herdstone, which I have the model of it behind me somewhere, but I don't want to get up and look for it while I'm streaming. So they have their Herdstone, which is like their symbolic statue where they'll get a big stone and set it upright, and then they kind of put a fire at the base, and they'll place all these different things, trophies and things they've won in battle, and that's how they worship the chaos gods. They'll carve a big chaos symbol into it, and sometimes they'll bring it with them different places. Sometimes they just bring parts of it. One of the Gotrek and Felix books, I think it was Shaman Slayer, part of it is they're trying to like harry this Beastmen army that's traversing across the land, carrying with them a huge herdstone that they're going to set up somewhere to draw powers of chaos to them. And Beastmen can like feel a herdstone call to them, and they will go to it and kind of link up their herds to make it even bigger and have a huge army. Super cool stuff. I love it. But yeah, Beastmen, to me, was why I liked them so much was their look, and that was the long and short of it. I loved how they looked. They were really cool to play with on the table at first, and then as they got through different editions of the game, they got worse for whatever reason. They had some really, really cool rules that GW got rid of. But in the Warhammer fantasy, in the role play, they are terrifying. Like, you don't want to. Sometimes they're used as like early level fodder, kind of like goblins or skeletons in other games, things like that. Like coming across like Ungor are not that big of a deal to fight against, but like actually fighting Gore, most PCs are going to have a really rough time. Something like a Minotaur would be terrifying. Thinking of the party in a Grim Podcast or Perilous Adventure, if they came across a Minotaur, one of them would probably die if they didn't just run away, which they probably wouldn't be able to because it'd be faster than them. These aren't things that you want to fight in the role-playing game as PCs. Something like Centigors, oh my gosh, they'd be disgusting to fight against. They'd have a bunch, be able to claw out with their horse-type legs, and they have weapons up top. They like flails a lot too. They hit really hard. Beastmen are really cool to include though, because they can be like this sign of worse things to come in a way. They're kind of like a harbinger of doom kind of thing. Like, oh, if there's Beastmen massing, that means that something's going on with chaos, and that's not good. I'd love to include more in the role-playing stuff. They're just not something that's a big part of the enemy within campaign that I've seen. I know later on Skaven are part of it. I mean, the fourth book is called The Horned Rat, so obviously it's going to happen. Bastion's going to get real mad when we say Skaven constantly during that book. But with the Southlands game, I'm going to create some probably like more African-inspired Beastmen, probably things like ape-type Beastmen or Old World monkeys, that kind of thing. It'd be kind of cool to kind of take these same ideas and just kind of change the skin on them. Instead of being goat-shaped, they'd be like monkeys, which I think is kind of cool. The only thing there is that, like, to be a proper Beastman, you have to have horns, at least in the old world. So, is it the same in the Southlands? I don't know. According to a map in this book, there aren't really Beastmen in the Southlands. There's a really cool map. One of the first world maps I saw, probably the first world map of the Warhammer world I saw back in the day, was this really cool map showing where Beastmen are in the world. So we can see there aren't really many in the Southlands. They are over on the East Coast there. But where I plan on setting this campaign is more like here-ish. So according to this, there aren't really Beastmen there. But it's my campaign. I'm going to do what I want. No, what, Bash? I don't know what you're saying no to. I just see no in the chat. I don't know what it means. I think there's a slight delay with the chat, so if you're talking about something specific, I don't always know what it is. There are 8 Beastmen in the South. Yeah, so I'm just going to kind of take that and run with it and make my own thing a little bit. I know I was asking people in one of the WFRP groups on Facebook for some ideas for the Southlands. And they pointed me to a Ben, oh shoot, I forgot the name. Is it Ben Scary? Ben Scary, something like that, where he's done some things online with a blog all about the Southlands. So I'm going to have to read that a bunch over the next few weeks as we prepare for this game, and see what kind of things I already came up with for Beastmen. I definitely include to have some kind of King Kong influences in there. I don't want to say too much because I know the players will watch this or part of this. Something along that line to give us some danger beyond other things. I've already made up at least one disease they're going to have to contend with down in the Southlands. Bastion had another cool idea of like bugs laying eggs in the skin of the players and things like that. Could be something cool to come up with. One but I'm bringing this up again because we're kind of into like the viewer question and discussion part of the show, where I love any more ideas. Ben Scary, that's it. Scurry, I don't know how to pronounce it. One of the leads on WFRP. Oh, that's really cool. I've looked at the credits. I try to give credit where credit's due. I didn't notice that name before, but that's really cool. I think it was Theo Axner on Facebook pointed me to and a guy, I think it's Gael, I think it's how you pronounce it, pointing me to his blogs. I think are like unofficial, but if he's a writer for the game, that's even better. So I definitely got to read through that stuff. But I'd love to hear ideas from the community as well. I got a lot of ideas. I've never felt like I'm the best at creating adventures, so any other ideas would be great. Lemmy, friend of the podcast and patron, said to include Bretonians on like an errantry war or something like that, or questing knights. That's the word. Maybe a group of questing knights that have really gotten lost. I think it was a guy named Tom suggested like a penal colony. I think there's official lore about a penal colony in the Southlands, or just like indigenous people that live, the natives that are down there, that kind of thing. There's going to be like Elven Way Towers and maybe the Lost Dwarf Carrick, somebody suggested. So I want to hear ideas from the community. You can always email us at theprofessionalcasual@gmail.com. You can let tag us in a tweet on Twitter at Top Tier Casual, or my personal is at IceDan_HDH. You can on Facebook, we're around all the time. You can find my post on Facebook about the Southlands campaign. You can join the Patreon and comment things there. Give us ideas. Be ready for when the show comes out. Also for Grim Podcast of Press Adventure video is exclusive to Patreon, as well as the video for Lost Omens and other bonus episodes of things that we've done, other games. First edition, there was a mention of pygmies. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Pygmies would be kind of cool. Maybe long lost halflings that are like pygmies now. No, not gnomes. Never gnomes, Dagna. Don't even bring that energy here. Angry cannibal halflings was how it was explained. I love it. Thorlash, get out. I can be meaner to you. No, not gnomes. No. I understand and accept that gnomes have been in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay from first edition. I know they were a thing Graham Davis put in the game from really early on. They weren't in second edition. I don't know about third because we don't talk about third. And I know they're in fourth edition because they're in the Hard Nights, Rough Days. I can never remember how to say the name of that book. But no, I'm not going to have gnomes in my campaign. Not allowed. Thorlash, you can't be a gnome. Not allowed. But there's a lot of different things that could be happening down there. And I'd love for some ideas from the community. If you're watching this on YouTube, throw it in the comments. I check the videos for comments pretty much daily. Or Tim will let me know if we get a notification that somebody commented. But I'd love to have some ideas there to flesh it out a bit more. I made a map for it on Incarnate. I came up with a bunch of different things. I think I have through letter L for different locations where things can happen. But I love even more. I love it just to be a really long-term thing. At this point, the way that our group plays with lots of role-playing and whatnot, this could already be like a 50-episode thing, potentially. But why not even go for longer? It's something that eventually, too, I think I would make a Patreon exclusive to get like a PDF of the campaign. Maybe when we're done or near the end, people can run it themselves if they want. Something that would be available on Patreon. No trees on the map. No, it's just a stamp, Bastion. It's just it just made it greenish. I don't know why you're so stuck on this. He's talking about the Incarnate map I shared in the Patreon Discord, where if you want to join the Patreon just to be part of the Discord, you can join it for as little as $1 a month, and you get access to the Discord. You can talk about things like Warhammer. It's been really, really busy this weekend, especially, but we've got a lot of awesome guys in there, and girls. I mean, Danny's in there and whatnot. I don't want to say it's just going to be guys ever, but talking about all kinds of stuff. We've got a lot of different channels in there to cover a bunch of different things. We've got channels specifically to talk about Grim Podcast of Perilous Adventure for a spoiler, so things aren't ruined for people that need to catch up, like Throwlash. And we got channels about Warhammer, Marvel Crisis Protocol. We've got the Mandalorian, and that's over for now. But we'll probably have one about WandaVision as well, because Tim is super excited about that. I'm excited too, but Tim already loves. I mean, he really loves Wiccan and Speed. He loves the children of Scarlet Witch and Visions. He's super excited for that show. So there'll probably be a whole channel dedicated to that on there. And it's just a great place to hang out and make friends and talk to people that are interested in the same things. We talked about Pathfinder. We got a whole Pathfinder channel. JB was talking about his own game on there for a while, getting ideas from people to help him out. It's a great place. And then you can join. We get access to that for any of the tiers on Patreon. Even if you only do $1 a month, that's cool. Thanks. We got a bunch of different tiers at this point. We're going to be adding more things as we go, of course. We've been hitting milestones way earlier than we were expecting. The support for what we've been doing has been amazing. And it's just been so great. We're so thankful and so just shocked with how great it's been in the community. It's because the network isn't just Warhammer. Big Chuck, Dagna's great to talk to. Very, very true. I like everybody in the chat. Everybody's great. You guys are all awesome. It's like a sports channel, but real. We don't have any channels about sports. Actually, I need to check at the Titans-Ravens game, see how that's going. Oh wow, Dagna just gifted tier 1 subs to the community. You are the man, Dagna. Thank you so much. Patron Barbecue 2022. Yeah, I mean, all kinds we have lots of plans. We want to eventually, once we get enough support in the Patreon, we want to be able to do like convention attendance things. We love the idea of eventually doing live shows someday. That's probably a ways off because that's going to be expensive to set up and everything. But that's something that we really, really want to do someday. I love the idea of doing like a series of one-shots in live shows where either me or Danny or anybody really could from the network to GM. I like doing it, but it doesn't have to be me. I know Tim is expressing a lot of interest in GMing. He's heavily considering GMing a Soulbound game because we're going to be doing that down the line probably someday. Just finding time for that. But he GM'd a game on the Patreon of he took a D&D 5e one shot called The Haunt and converted it to 2e, and he ran that with me, Big Chuck, and Sarah. She was also on our Soulbound game and in the Space Between Presents show where we talked about things. You sleep in my basement for the barbecue? I mean, in the summer, yeah, it'll be cool down here. Can we set up a WFRP style shanty town in your backyard? I mean, it's actually big enough. That'd be fine. My dog would probably like that. There'd be scraps around for him to eat. I keep getting off track because people in the chat, but that's what this part of the show is supposed to be about anyway, so that's fine. Danny says, you have to go shot for shot with Tim to get a cop behind the curtain. Oh, man. In the past, that would have been difficult, but not so much anymore for Tim to go shot for shot. He's almost as much of a lightweight as I am nowadays. But yeah, we'd love to do like convention appearances. I mentioned to Tim as like a Patreon goal in the future. He started looking into it immediately because he was excited about it. And like the closest thing to us is probably PAX East, which I believe is in Boston. Taylor, you've been to it. Where's PAX East? Is that Boston? Telling me the chat has a slight delay. And he was like, oh, a mini booth at PAX East is like $1,500. And it's like, okay, so maybe that's not a this year goal. That's a lot in addition to, all right, good. Everybody's saying Boston, sweet. And that's in addition to travel expenses and a hotel for people. Because I was saying we'd want at least the three, we call the owners of the Professional Casual Network. Not the only members, but me, Danny, and Tim. We're thinking at least the three of us to go and go attend these things and meet more people and push our brand and whatnot. And say, hey, listen to our show if you haven't yet. If you like actual plays, I think you'll like ours because we're awesome. But it's something that we definitely want to do in the future, and I have a tendency to get big ideas and then want to do it immediately, like this Southlands campaign. Like I literally started typing up stuff yesterday, and I'm like, what are we playing? I want to do this right now. Bastion, just don't talk about us when you do what you're doing. I'm not gonna repeat it for the YouTube video. But yeah, Bastion is kind of like going behind enemy lines in a way. I can't delete that, can I? um, PAX Unplugged. Maybe that's the one Maybe that's what he said, and I was thinking. Isn't that also in Boston, or is that somewhere else? PAX Unplugged. Maybe he said PAX East. I don't know. PAX Unplugged makes more sense, obviously, as role playing game focus that we'd be there for. But PAX East is also like, I don't know. I feel like that fits as well. But that's something we really want to do. We love the idea of live shows. I think everybody on the network listens to podcasts and a lot of podcasts. That's in Philly. I mean, that's closer than Boston, I'm pretty sure, to us. But I know Danny listens to podcasts like My Favorite Murder that does live shows, and she loves the idea of going to one. And she's so much more of an extrovert than I am that I think she'd really shine in that situation, or at a con talking to people about what we do. Like, I would just stand behind Tim and let them talk, because near Nottingham, again, we're American. We live in New York State, so probably, I mean, that's certainly a goal down the line. I would absolutely love to do an international show, fly out to England and do a show there. Would be a dream. But we're gonna need some more patrons before we can do that. Yeah, define near. But those are just some ideas we've been floating around. Things that we'd love to do in the future, and the rate we're growing, it could certainly happen. Things have been awesome. We've gotten a few more brand new patrons the last few days, which has been fantastic. I love meeting new people through this. Like, even a year ago, if you had told me that I'd have friends literally around the world because of an actual play podcast we were doing, I'd be like, what are you, crazy? No way. Like, I'm not a people person. I'm not a fan of talking to people. I don't even like ordering pizza on the phone. Danny can attest to this. I did it. I ordered something on the phone earlier this week, but I'm not a huge fan of doing that. Something like this is super easy for me because I don't have to, there's nobody here. My basement's empty. It's just me looking at the computer and looking at people talking on the chat. This is super easy for me. If we were like at a con, I'd probably have a panic attack halfway through or an anxiety attack just from people around. But I think it'd be different because everybody's there for the same reason. Everybody's there to learn about new things, new games, new experiences, and have a great time and talk about nerd stuff. Going to like Walmart that's packed with people in the middle of a pandemic when half of them aren't wearing masks and whatnot is not my idea of a good time. And that's when I'm like, oh, I gotta get out of here right away and forget half the things I came in for anyway. Something like a con, I think I'd be more comfortable, but I know Danny loves the idea. Tim loves the idea. They're much more outgoing than I am. But it's like, I would do it for you guys, you know? Like, I would do it for the patrons and the listeners and all that. Wait, what's the area of whose expertise, Danny? Bastion, yeah, you can come here. That'll be all right. Obviously, this is all dependent on whenever COVID stuff gets a little more under control, which in the States is completely out of control at the moment. But I don't want to get into too much of that stuff. That's not what you're here for. Throwlash, dress up as Bruno. I mean, you're too tall to be Bruno. Chat's blowing up today. This is great. Where'd it go? Danny says, Tim is for faux show the face of the network. I mean, it was literally our logo for the first 5 months or so was Tim's face, like, and then we eventually got our current PCN logo. I love Bastion says, but not the voice, because everybody loves me and his accent. But yeah, I mean, just the idea of going to a con sounds amazing for a lot of different reasons. I've never been to a con like that. I know Throwlash, you've been to a couple things, right? You've been to like PAX East with Chad and whatnot. Chad he was on the Paul Patreon exclusive show where we did my RPG. But I've never been to one, so it would be kind of interesting for my first con ever to not be just a visitor, but like a vendor in a way. We wouldn't be there like selling a product other than probably bring some merch, maybe. But it's more like, hey, listen to our show. That like our product is this show. that then if you join our Patreon, you can get extra stuff and whatnot. So it'd be really interesting to be that if that was my first con experience. I've said for a long time that I could die happy if someday somebody went to a convention like that, dressed, cosplaying as one of my characters from something. Danny says, got to bring cakes to sit on. Yeah, right, if you ever actually do that. Because I have my fantasy novel, Lainey the Girl Without Fear. You can get it on Amazon if you want, paperback or ebook. I also have a superhero novel series called The $100 Heroes that I've been working on pitching to the literary agents. It hasn't been snatched up yet. But if things take off with the network, I might say I'll just do that one self-published as well. But it's just always been my dream if somebody would like my characters as much as I do to dress up as them and see them like that at a con, which would be just like, be like, all right, I can die happy now. I made it. I did it. So like, if people are interested in checking out, people like what we're doing here or like what I'm doing here as me, Dan, not just the network. I'm looking for any feedback on $100 Heroes that I could get to help with things like beta reading and making it the best it can be. I know Dagna's been awesome. He's been reading Laney. I'm pretty sure I saw Bastion did too, but I forget exactly. I think Dagna started reading $100 Heroes for me too, which was great. But I just love any more feedback on that. I haven't had a lot of time to work on those lately, on $100 Heroes, because I've been working on preparing for games and now this show all the time. Next week, I got to figure out where's my schedule. I don't remember what I'm talking about next week. I think it's Dwarves, which I don't have to do much research for that. That one's pretty well ingrained in my head. But I haven't had as much time to work on the books and things because of other stuff. Oh, no, next week's Elves, because I played Elves. Yeah, I don't really have to do much research for that. I might do a little bit about Uthlin, but that'll be about it. Maybe the proper pronunciation of that. How do you say that? How do you say that, Bastion? How do you say the island nation of the elves? Because I just can't do it. Ulthuan. Do you even pronounce the L? Is it just Uthuan? I don't know. I can't do it. I got to figure out how to say that. Maybe I'll see if I can contact somebody like at Cubicle 7 or somewhere. Uthuan? Yeah, maybe that's it. I don't know. I can't say it. We talked about at one point on this show, a Grim podcast of Perilous Adventure was originally going to be called Ulrich's Fury, but then I realized it was hard to say all the time. I don't know why. Or I just say Ulrich. Wait, which one was right? He said you did it right. I don't know which one. But yeah, next week will be about elves. And I'll probably get sidetracked talking about what I want to do in the future again. Bastion, if you want to read $100 Heroes for me, tell me and give me some feedback on it. Let me know your email and I can share the doc with you. If you're watching this on Facebook or on YouTube, yeah, that's the one. Same thing. If you want to email theprofessionalcasual@gmail.com, let us know if you're interested in beta reading. I'll share the copy of the Google Doc with you so you can take a look and make comments and suggestions. Yeah, Throwlash says it should be pronounced funny, stinky Elflands, but, you know, he played goblins and dwarves a lot, so he still calls it the War of the Beard. All right, so Bastion says Ulthuan. Okay, that's how I've always said it, but it gets tripped up in my dumb American mouth. But yeah, so we're past 4 at this point. I think Danny's going to need want a little break from the kids, and I got to see how that football game went, see if the Titans or the Ravens won. My brother Tim is a Titans fan, so he's going to be either real happy or real upset. Otherwise, as usual, let me know. Again, on the Patreon, on the Facebook, email us, whatever. Let me know anything you want covered in the future of this show. Next week is elves, so elf-specific questions would be best, but it doesn't have to be. I like this part of the show at the end where we can just kind of chat, talk to the chat, and then I will also take any user-generated listener questions or comments for that. It's only episode 4, so we haven't really gotten much of that yet, but I expect it to get better as we get going and more established. At this point, I'm really, really happy. The first episode on YouTube has over 100 views, which makes me ecstatic. Super excited for that. So you throw questions at me. The YouTube video goes up 2 weeks after, so If you don't hear it the next week, then just kind of I'll certainly get to it, especially with the volume there is right now. There's absolutely no problem for me to get to those questions. So let me know. Let me know what you think. Questions, things you want covered, how you think you should pronounce Skaven, or how do you think you should say Uthelin. Let us know. I love any kind of interaction with listeners. You guys are the best, especially patrons. Thanks you so much. You can join the patreon.com/professionalcasual and get access to our Discord for as little as $1 a month, or if you want to do more, that's even more awesome. Throwlash says he's going to pronounce it Skaven. Or you can pronounce it Skaven, I guess. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next week, Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. GMT. Bye. I hit the right button. I always miss it.